When brainstorming the idea about pop culture psychology with the guys behind the camera, this was the idea that inspired it. I love studying human thinking and behaviors, and not just the good, the bad, but just everything in between. And like me, one of the bad traits many people are utterly fascinated with is psychopathy. Not to be confused with psychopathology, I remember a lot of people in college getting the two confused. Be whatever the reason, the fascination is there. I'm definitely one of these people who are very interested in psychopaths. That sounds... Moving on. There are a lot of characters in all the medias that can be called psychopaths, but never in my mind was there a debate on the person I wanted to cover. That individual is the clown prince of crime himself, the Joker.
Hello, kiddies. Meet the Joker. No hard feelings. Corny, aren't I?
Joker, what are you doing here?
The Joker is a character that is over 70 years old and has many variations. He has been in movies, television, and of course comic books. For the purposes of this episode, we're going to keep what is consistent through the majority of the variations. That way we have more wiggle room than discussing only one point in time where it may not shed a complete light on psychopathy. With that said, the true origins of the Joker is not his birth, but how he was actually created. During a robbery at Ashe chemical processing plant, the criminal known as the Red Hood falls into a vat of chemicals after a confrontation with Batman. This is the moment that Joker came to be. For most part, he is completely human, but the chemicals gave him extreme pain tolerance, immunity to most toxins, and his blood is toxic to others as well. He is extremely intelligent, cunning, and charismatic with some aptitude in physical combat. All of this isn't what makes him dangerous, though. This only adds to what makes him truly more dangerous than many in Batman's rogues gallery who have more tangible powers. Put all of this into a psychopath, and now we start seeing how Joker is one of the more truly dangerous people in the DC universe. When delving into a character, we'll be usually discussing the DSM-5 a lot. In this case, we'll only be talking about antisocial personality disorder a little bit, which is what psychopathy falls under, but APD is a disorder where psychopathy is actually a personality trait. APD covers a lot of personality traits in the disorder definition, so APD really does deserve its own separate episode. The big thing to know is that one key aspect of antisocial personality disorder is the complete disregard for violating other people's rights. This translates into a complete disregard for law, property, and of course, human rights. We'll talk about how these things relate to the Joker later, so remember them. It is good to remember that for context. See what I did there? APD doesn't really hit one of the biggest aspects of psychopathy, which is that they are completely devoid of empathy. Now really think about that for a moment. Empathy is a key trait when relating to others and remembering that other people are human, or half man, half bat, or a human that looks like a crocodile. Comic books. Either way, empathy is a cornerstone on how we understand other people's perspectives and feelings. None of this applies to a psychopath. It simply does not exist. Psychopaths do not have limited empathy, they have none. Definitely keep this in mind as we talk about the Joker, because this is by far the most important and unique aspect of psychopathy. It is important. Lacking in empathy starts to intertwine with other traits that we see in Joker. One of these traits is not having a conscience. Psychopaths have no remorse or guilt for their actions. Many of us have felt guilt or shame when experiencing something in our life, usually due to poor choices, and some of us even rationalize our actions when we hurt others. Psychopaths don't need to because they don't have a conscience to nag at them. They can do whatever they want without any negative emotional feedback, and many do for personal gain. They do not connect with others, so in turn, they do not care about others. Simply put, their own personal advancement or desire is all that matters to them. With the Joker, we see this all the time, especially when he has a goal, usually targeted at Batman. In The Killing Joke, Joker did a number of atrocities. For those who have read The Killing Joke, you'll understand why I say I don't want to be too specific for a video like this, other than he definitely violated, hurt, and killed people. But the important part to know is that the Joker did horrible things just to prove the point that one bad day can make anyone into someone like him. By the way, not even remotely true. Like, psychopaths are born, so the fact that Joker was trying to prove this, it's a whole thing, but he was wrong. Science says so. He violated and hurt people to prove a philosophical point. No justification needed beyond that for him. Joker had an idea and he carried it out without any guilt, remorse, or mercy. Psychopathy also has a lot of innate traits that help him do whatever they want to do. Psychopaths are usually incredibly manipulative, charming, and charismatic. This is definitely true for the Joker. One thing that makes the Joker so dangerous in the DC universe is how well he can manipulate others. There are countless examples of this when talking about the Joker being a master manipulator. This is also a good time to point out that having no empathy does not stop people from being able to be good at understanding others. Joker constantly manipulates others. Batman on many occasions, but villains, civilians, pretty much anybody he can. He usually has a gang with him because there's something that draws people to the Joker. Harley Quinn is an easy example of this, but let's talk about her in a little bit. A story arc where Batman specifically fell into the Joker's manipulations due to the Joker understanding Batman so well was Death of the Family story, not to be confused with Death in the Family. We'll get to that one later. The Bat Family, which is Batman's closest allies and those he considered family like Nightwing and Alfred, are captured by the Joker and thought to have their faces removed by the Joker. You know what? Don't ask, that's way too much to unpack and way too much to explain. I'm bringing it up because Batman reacted to a certain way with the reappearance of Joker in Gotham City. Joker got to his family, he knew how Batman would react, and used that knowledge to play a sadistic game with Batman. Empathizing with others and understanding others are two completely different things, and a psychopath is incapable of one, entirely incapable, but really good at the other one.
Real quick, was there a spoiler warning?
So I did about 7 spoilers. Spoilers? One reason I think many comic fans love the Joker so much is because he's so intriguing and interesting. Even many readers are drawn to him to some degree. Now, I'm not saying we're ready to join the Joker gang, but I am saying there's an opening there for a master manipulator to exploit and take advantage of. Not only do psychopaths have a good ability to manipulate people and in turn exploit them, but many psychopaths can spot vulnerabilities in others as well. There are a few studies, but one of my favorite ones is that a group of researchers videotaped women, some with traumatic experiences and some without. They took the videotapes of them just walking, then presented them to both college students, not psychopaths, and known psychopaths. And yes, the psychopaths were able to pinpoint women with traumatic experiences much easier with a much higher accuracy than the non-psychopaths. Yeah, not only do they have no problem exploiting people, but they know who is the easiest to exploit. On a random side note, you know who does most of the studies on psychopaths that I read? Like what country? Take a wild guess. Canada. Think about that for a second. Very charismatic, very charming, but underneath, crazy. I'm onto you, Canada. I'm just saying. Does any of this make you uneasy or stressed? Well, then you're probably not a psychopath. Psychopaths do not get stressed under most circumstances many of us would. A common example is that psychopaths can have a dead body in the trunk of their car and get pulled over with zero anxiety over it. Joker can pull off a lot of what he does because of this. Lacking in anxiety when he should tends to follow most psychopaths, where it means he is much more level-headed under pressure. They're also usually more prone to take risks, they're not as stressed or worried over the consequences, and without feeling any doubt creeping in, they tend to be highly confident in those high-risk, high-pressure situations. Be it on the verge of death or ready to lose it all, Joker is rarely distraught by any of that. If anything, he is angrier that his plans sometimes do not go the way he wants. Even under extreme circumstances, the Joker is laughing and having a ball. Now, there are 2 things I would do a disservice to the Joker if I did not talk about them. First, let's talk about Harley Quinn. Psychopaths do not form attachments or honest relationships with other people.
Harley, I'm not in the party mood. If you really want to make me happy... Find the plagiarist who's been stealing my act! Ugh. Sweet kid, but a lousy cook.
The Joker has no affections or love for Harley Quinn. There's no debate there. This goes above and Batman beyond abuse. When he met Harleen Quinzel, she became prey and he used all the tactics we mentioned before to groom her into what he needed and he could keep a hold of. This is very common for psychopaths. They tend to groom people in general and try to turn them into what they want. And to be honest, I'm just gonna let your imagination run with that because, yeah.
Riddler. What? Harley? Oh, where the heck have you been? Yeah. Batman, eh? Oh, you don't say. You have who tied up where?
In almost every episode with the 2 in it, you can see the Joker look at her with complete affection, then have that look completely vanish without Harley being able to notice. One minute he tosses her around the streets, and then he professes his undying love when he needs something from her. She is a tool in the Joker's eyes. nothing more. With all psychopaths, the Joker has no sense of kinship with his criminal allies or even Batman. A big staple in Joker's personality is his obsession with Batman. Don't mistake that for anything other than that. Obsession is not attachment. The Joker has an ideology that has a desire to prove something to Batman if he doesn't want to outright play with him, and that's all that really drives the Joker. And it goes without saying he definitely feels nothing when it comes to his victims.
She almost had me, you know. Arms and legs chained, dizzy from the blood rushing to my head. I had no way out other than convincing her to call you. I knew your massive ego would never allow anyone else the honor of killing me. Though I have to admit she came a lot closer than you ever did. Puddin'.
Which leads us to Jason Todd, aka Robin. Again, DC fans know that so much happens after Death in the Family story arc, but I'm not going to talk about that. The murder of Robin as a standalone point carries so much weight into who the Joker is that that's really what I want to talk about, not to mention it's a pretty iconic part of comic book history. It needs to really be mentioned here. And yes, for those who know the Joker returns from Batman Beyond, I'm outright dismissing that because it directly conflicts with the original comic book material. To catch the rest of you up, Jason Todd was the second Robin after Dick Grayson. During this iconic storyline, Jason Todd is captured by the Joker. First, Jason is beaten with the crowbar by the Joker until he was unconscious and in a pool of his own blood. The Joker left, setting a time bomb that Jason tried to escape from, but couldn't and died from his injuries. Beating someone with a crowbar, if you really think about it, is a pretty horrific thing, and much more brutal than, say, a gunshot or even a knife wound. The fear Jason must have felt trying to desperately escape the bomb as well is another factor that leads to such a gruesome death. This is also not a nameless person. Joker and Robin knew each other, at least their aliases, but they weren't strangers to each other, and that's just a small point that needs to be mentioned in this. None of that affected the Joker in any way that it would affect most of us. Robin's life was actually voted on by the populace, and though close, most individuals voted to kill off Robin rather than to have him live. We know that these are fictional characters and none of them are real, and sure, of course, some people put themselves in the world of the DC universe and responded to this voting poll as if it was something real. That's not actually too uncommon with people with high amounts of empathy, get very attached and involved with the characters and almost humanize them, even though they are fictional. But even then, almost everyone knows a crime fighter named Robin did not actually die a painful, brutal death. Yes, some of us wanted to just see him die or to troll, but many reported looking at it from a story perspective. Jason was not well liked as a character, and many felt he was more of a distraction than an enhancement to the story arcs, especially when compared to the first Robin. Robin is a fictional character, and that's how he was looked at, and in response, people voted in that context. There's no real regard for his life or for his loved one's feelings because simply he wasn't a real person. That's not uncommon, and that doesn't really make you a psychopath, it just makes you someone looking at a story. And to a degree, that is how Joker thinks too. In Joker's world, people are just pieces to a puzzle or a narrative to his story, and that's it. Having any empathy or concern is just not something in his mentality. How easy it was for many to vote for Robin's death would be just as easy for Joker to enact in the actual world he is a part of. And that is what makes a true psychopath. There's a couple other things I want to mention. First, not all psychopaths are antisocial, just are more prone to being antisocial. I wanted to make that point just because I thought it was needed to be said, and though psychopaths are usually not good people, it doesn't inherently make them violent, just more prone to being violent. This is also a good point to throw out a little factoid on what antisocial actually means. Though in popular context we refer to anyone not social as antisocial, that is not an accurate use of the term. Antisocial as a psychological term are individuals who are openly hostile, aggressive, and most likely violent to others. Most of us mean asocial, which just means they're neither very social nor antisocial. Little tidbit for you. Also, I saw a few things on the Joker saying he's not a psychopath because he wasn't born as a psychopath, and that is an important feature of psychopathy. Psychopaths are born as psychopaths, they are not turned into psychopaths. I obviously see the lines of thinking, but I cannot disagree more.
And they say I'm crazy.
As I explain why, remember only psychopaths are completely devoid of empathy. Other personalities that fall under antisocial personality disorder are capable of empathy, at least to some degree, usually just not as much as the average human being. Remember in the beginning when I said that the true origins of the Joker is not his biological birth, but was created at Ace Chemicals? In our world, this point would be non-existent as nothing like this would actually occur. and our diagnostics would never take such an extreme biological chemical alteration like that into account. In the DC universe, however, having things like a chemical that can completely change a person to the degree we're talking about is above and beyond anything a medication or drug can do. With the Joker specifically, the personality traits, biology, even his genes are not just simply altered, they're completely changed. In essence, whoever the Joker was before actually doesn't matter, because that night at Ace Chemicals killed that person. The person born that night was a completely new one, and that person, in my opinion, is one of the most dangerous people to ever exist in the DC universe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If there's another character or a psychological concept you want us to discuss, please let us know and leave a comment below. So go on, have a laugh, and don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and click the notify bell so you don't miss out on the next episode. See you then. Ha ha ha, we're all friends here. I can float too. Wrong clown. I'm spiraling in the wrong direction.